he spends his entire life acting like a pathetic, weak mob character, but he is actually a secret max-level magic god, pulling all the strings from the shadows. Deep within a dark, magical realm, our resident Chunibu protagonist, Cid Kagenou, struts around in his edgy, pitch-black Shadow Garden gear, while blue magical energy swirls around his boots. Seriously, his main quest in life isn't to be a generic RPG hero or some final boss, but the ultimate puppet master pulling the strings from the background. He stands in his mental happy place, flanking himself with an imaginary elf girl and an army of masked followers.
Smirking under his hood, like a total dork, whose eyes flash red because he desperately wants to be the Eminence in shadow. This whole dream started in his past life as a basic school kid, where he dreamed of posing dramatically in a feathered hat with flower petals. Back in the real world, young Cid spent his nights in a dark bedroom, staring at a glowing computer screen, pretending to be an unremarkable mob character at school, while secretly undergoing a brutal physical grind on the weight bench. He spent his days ignoring high school socialites, reading books, and mastering martial arts, while hiding his power level under a shadowed face. He sat hunched over his desk, preparing for his shadow-broken career, fully aware that no matter how much you bench, you still get deleted by a modern military squad in a gunfight. He even calculated that a direct nuclear strike would vaporize him instantly. Which is a massive skill issue for a wannabe shadow deity. So what did he do? He wore a victory headband and crammed his brain with crazy theories to avoid getting nuked, desperately scribbling notes and researching bizarre mystical methods. After losing his mind over a knockoff magic book, he decided he had to unlock actual magical energy. He went on a solo budget pilgrimage wearing a goofy straw hat, meditated under freezing waterfalls, did extreme yoga tree poses, prayed on a random wooden cross, and literally smashed his bare head against tree trunks until he bled. Then, one night on a dark road, he saw flickering headlights. Convinced he'd finally found the magical source, he sprinted toward it and got himself completely pancaked by a massive oncoming delivery truck. Fast forward to his isekai reincarnation as Cid Kagenou, where he retains all those ridiculous memories. Now, out on the training grounds of his family's grand estate, his overbearing, powerhouse older sister Claire is absolutely bodying him in a wooden sword duel. To maintain his masterclass mob character disguise, Cid deliberately lets her break his defenses and take him down with a magically enhanced kick. He flops onto the grass, fake crying about how she's way too strong, while Claire looks down at him like he's a pathetic disappointment who brings shame to their prestigious spellsword lineage. She's only 12, but already has the stuck-up aura of a top-tier warrior, sighing in disgust as she lectures him about their noble blood and demands he take it seriously. Cid plays the weak, submissive little brother perfectly, so Claire summons a flashy magic orb
and holds her wooden sword horizontally to continue her condescending lecture about his lack of magic, technique, and physique. She predicts he'll always be a bottom-tier apprentice, but then decides to flex by charging her blade with glowing energy. With one clean horizontal slice, she explodes a massive boulder and strikes a proud pose amidst the rubble. Cid does his best NPC impression, cheering with fake starry-eyed wonder and asking for her secret. Claire smugly sheathes her sword, says it's impossible for him anyway, and tells him to clean up the shattered rocks while she heads inside. The second she's out of sight, Cid's goofy loser act vanishes instantly. A devious grin spreads across his face, because at just 10 years old, he's actually a max-level magic prodigy. He praises his own flawless acting and starts effortlessly juggling the heavy, broken boulders in a high-speed loop. He balances the heavy stones perfectly on his fingertips and knows he can execute crazy physical feats.
He resolves to keep his true fangs hidden like a proper shadow broker. He plays hacky sack with the rocks, but realizes he still hasn't figured out how to survive a nuke. Since nukes don't exist in this fantasy world, he could technically ignore it. But our perfectionist protagonist refuses to compromise his edgy standards. Eager for a live fire test, he sprints toward the nearby dark forest under the twilight sky, hoping to hunt down some local bandits to test his gear as night completely consumes the woods. Over at a chaotic bandit camp hidden deep in the dark woods, a rowdy gang of bandits is throwing a victory party inside a run-down wooden building. The stubble-faced leader and his light-haired lackey are chugging alcohol and celebrating their successful raid, while a bald thug laughs about how easily they slaughtered a helpless merchant woman and her young boy earlier. In their sick, twisted memories, we see the tragic victims slumped over a bloody cart, while these scumbags mock them. Back in the present, the bald bandit chuckles at how careless merchants are, and the leader smugly begins to recount how he threatened them. He laughs and mutters about making them show their valuables. Suddenly, Cid crashes through the roof like a complete maniac, scaring the absolute crap out of the dark-haired thug and sending the leader reeling. Brandishing his weapon, Cid lunges into the camp, screaming a wild battle cry, leaving the bald bandit sweating in terror and the leader yelling about who this weird kid is. Our boy Cid strikes an edgy combat stance, screams a classic thug line about handing over their valuables, and gets labeled with a hilarious protagonist text box. He demands their gold, pointing his dark slime weapon at the bald thief and ordering him to jump. The terrified bandit complies, and when Cid hears a satisfying coin clinking sound, he happily claims the loot. The spiky-haired bandit is utterly baffled by this weirdo, but Cid just tells them to stay calm, while claiming he's just a passing, unremarkable midget. He then launches into a full-blown commercial pitch for his custom-made slime suit and slime sword, explaining that slimes can change shape with magic, to the utter horror of the surrounding thugs. In a funny flashback, we see Cid blending caught slimes into jelly to craft an ultra-high conductivity suit and sword, complete with stylized, strong and cheap infomercial slogans. He boasts about their 99% magic conductivity and lunges forward, slashing the bald bandit's chest while offering the gear to the lady of the house. He unleashes a barrage of high-speed aura slashes, instantly slicing open the light-haired bandit and cutting down the reddish-brown thug with a brutal cross-slash. Cid laughs like a literal psychopath with jagged teeth, earning another protagonist label as he turns the entire camp into a bloody blender. Standing in the quiet, blood-soaked camp, he casually shrugs off the massacre. The battered bandit leader glares in pure hatred, and Cid realizes he only has one target left to test his nifty function number 2 on. The desperate leader screams about being a royal capital Bushin master and unleashes a heavy downward slash. The blade hits Cid's chest with a metallic clang, doing 0 damage and leaving the leader in shock. Cid smugly points to his intact slime suit, explaining that it has incredible defensive armor stats. The frustrated leader swings again, but Cid effortlessly dodges while critiquing the Bushin sword style. He flips through the air with extreme agility, leaving the leader completely unable to track his speed. When the leader asks where his sword went, Cid delivers a brutal mid-air kick that sends the boss flying. He reveals that nifty function number 2 lets him draw his slime sword from anywhere, adding a final burn by noting the leader was actually stronger than his sister. Cid stands victoriously among the wreckage, loots a heavy pouch of stolen coins, and dramatically tells the dead merchants that their stolen goods will now fund his rise as the Eminence in shadow. However, his attention is caught by a weird, cloth-covered cage. He pulls back the cover, expecting a slave, only to find a rotting, pale, corpse-like figure that lets out an eerie whistle. Realizing it's still barely breathing, Cid recognizes the symptoms of possession.
He recalls how the church claims to purify these cursed people, but actually massacres them behind closed doors to keep the public happy. Suddenly, a massive, unstable magic wave crackles around the rotting body. Recognizing the immense magical potential, Cid gets a devious grin on his face and decides to steal this test subject for some wild magical experiments. Back at his secret forest base, after several days of intense magic tweaking, Cid stands in his academy uniform holding a cleaver and a hammer, admitting he was completely shocked by the results of his experiments. It turns out the gross, rotting blob of flesh was actually a gorgeous, top-tier blonde elf girl. Cured and radiant, Alpha stares at her healed skin in absolute disbelief, immediately kneeling before Cid with tears of intense gratitude and offering to devote her entire life to him. Cid casually dismisses the heavy proposal, but internally, his Chunibyo brain starts spinning. He sits on a crate and asks if she wants to be his follower in Shadow Garden, which predictably confuses her. Realizing she has absolutely no idea what he's talking about, he knows he needs to set a concrete goal. After quickly brainstorming a wild fantasy trope to manipulate her, he declares her name is now Alpha and makes up a massive lie on the spot. He gravely announces that their grand mission is to stop the resurrection of the demon Diabolos. Alpha, sweating in confusion, asks if he means the demon from the fairy tales. Cid confirms this with a straight face, launching into a fabricated history lesson about how 3 ancient heroes defeated Diabolos. He claims the cult covered up the truth and that Diabolos cursed the heroes' descendants. He describes how this curse is passed down, calling it the curse of Diabolos, which explains her possession illness. Scratching silly drawings in the dirt with a branch, he explains that her rotting skin was actually proof of her heroic lineage. Alpha clutches her head in anger, furious that hero descendants are persecuted instead of revered. Cid points his stick at the drawings, explaining that a secret shadow organization called the Diabolos cult rewrote history to wipe them out. He adds that they are actively trying to revive the demon and designates them as their ultimate enemies. He claims this deadly cult operates entirely in the dark and erases anyone in their way. Since he employs the same sneaky tactics, he plans to stand up to them from the dark while striking a highly dramatic pose. Posing dramatically under a massive full moon as snow begins to fall, Cid declares their edgy motto, "We lurk in the shadows, and we hunt the shadows." He warns her that saving the world won't be easy, and that failure means absolute destruction before offering his hand to recruit her. Completely brainwashed by his epic storytelling, Alpha is filled with righteous, vengeful fury. She realizes the massive scale of their enemy and vows that the suffering of others must stop. She stands and yells in defiance. Kneeling under the giant moon, she solemnly pledges her life to Shadow Garden to bring death to their enemies. She bows her head, wishing vengeful death upon the sinners. The intense atmosphere instantly evaporates as Alpha bashfully clutches her collar while Cid stares at her with a blank, deadpan expression. Internally, our boy is absolutely celebrating because he totally nailed the role play. He maintains his deadpan face while realizing she's fully invested, smirking at how easily she bought his improvised act. As they walk through the snowy woods, Cid happily plans to keep this hilarious roleplay going forever, reminding himself that the cult doesn't actually exist, but his eyes glow anyway as he commits to the bit, already excited to use more cheesy lines about the demon's revival before a final note teases the next installment of his ridiculous journey.
The video ends here, but the story isn't over yet. Like the video if you're ready for the next part.